How was the sound? Oh, great! Wow.
So I'm going to see if I could. I'm going to take off this. Put on the silence because it'll be busy here. But I hope to listen.
Okay, amazing! Wow.
Okay.
I feel a bit in the pharmacy. It's unbelievable. That's like Dida betachtoinim shebetachtoinim.
You're in the pharmacy now? Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So a couple of industries are booming now. It's one of them is yours, no?
I don't know if it's booming. It's booming which way, up or down? Who knows?
They doubled the prices on all the medications. They doubled.
I have a customer. I'm putting it on silent.
Okay, bye. Have a great day.
I'm listening to you. I'm just gonna.
Oh, okay, fine. Go do it. Yeah. We're here. We're starting in a few minutes.
Hope we're open up by shoes. All the vibe shoes. I can become Yoshid. Okay. Hop in the mikveh.
Good morning, Peretz. How are you? Morning.
Okay.
In learning? Call it over.
Good. Yeah. You know the number?
You're on
Give me the prescription number. I'm looking at the bottles.
and they expect you to work with gloves, mask.
Shmulek,
Yeah.
what do I do with all the hangers? I'm cleaning up Parrott's area, and I have 100. I don't know how many hangers I have of yours. What do you want me to do with them?
Garbage.
You want them?
No, you could put it in the garbage. I have no use for it. The killer is closed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for thinking about me.
I always think about you if I have something that's relevant to you.
Are you going to be in the library today? I'd like to get some Devar Malchut.
Yeah, but I don't have them for the Parsha.
Yeah, no, Parrot says they're in the shul in the front.
Yeah, but I don't have the. If you ask Parrot how to get into the shul, then I can get in the shul and get them.
He said you do.
No, I know. I don't.
You could download. You could download the Devar Malchut.
Yeah, you could do the same with the Chayenu. You know, I don't have a combination, but I'm going to be. Parrot should be on here, so we'll ask him.
He's here on now, but
Parrots.
Yeah, I'll text you later. I'll call you later.
Parrots, you know I have a check for you.
I know that.
Okay, so
My brother-in-law and I might be over later, but don't count.
well, do you want me to drop it over?
We'll figure it out. There's also my brother's sister wants me to pick up some shirts.
She wants what?
Me to pick up some more shirts.
I could bring them to you.
Good morning.
If
Good
you
morning.
want, okay.
Good
You
morning,
want.
Mordai V'Rabbi. Good morning, dear
We'll
friends.
talk after the share. We'll talk after.
Good morning.
Rabbi Yoel, are you here? Shmulik, can you hear?
Here, yes. You hear,
Okay.
you hear us?
Oh, Yeshikoyach Benche.
You know what that is?
Where's your glove?
No,
You work in a pharmacy. I'm scared.
What is that?
Benzi, where's your gloves?
That's volume, just in case anybody gets nervous.
I got you. Okay.
Yeshikoyach Benche, we feel
Just
covered.
you should see that I'm high up over here.
Yes. Kol hakavod.
Do we
So
get a
I
discount?
try to stay away, and I'm here with my coworker James.
Kol hakavod.
Very good.
All
Very
right.
good.
I'm here to share as well.
Shmulik, did you get the sheets? Did anyone get the sheets?
Send them. I'll print them.
It was sent out. Could you check your email?
When,
Okay, I'm going
maybe
to check the email.
it's- I'll check my email.
Good morning. Good morning, Levi.
Boker Tov.
At
David, did you get the email?
No, I didn't.
Parrots, did you get the email? Oh, okay, it's in a text message. Shkoyach, Rabbi Yoel.
Okay, I see it now.
When was it sent? I'll look at the time.
It was sent.
5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I probably didn't get it
Look at your text.
minutes ago. Oh, that's probably takes about that long to get here. No, I didn't get it. All right, anyway, start. No.
Okay. Okay. It's a first Shiloh that I wanted to talk about is not a Shiloh that someone asked this week, but something that I want to bring up, which is that there is some people that have this concept that there is a skula to eat matzah for refuah, not only on Pesach, but the entire year. We spoke about Mitzvah Shem, the message that will be sent out, that the unbelievable story with the Toldos Yaakov Yosef. I don't want to repeat it, and you'll hear the story and the pshat about the Iyur and Ani Hashem Reifecha. But there is a beautiful letter afterwards that I found from the Rebbe, that the Rebbe asks the question, Iyur is Ani Hashem Reifecha, but that was the old opinion that we paskin in the Shulchan Aruch, that Iyur has to be 2 yuds. So 2 yuds is Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Rachel, not Ani Hashem Reifecha. The Rebbe answers a moedike answer. We know that the matzah is 2 things: michla de menusa, michla das vasa, bread of healing and bread of emunah. And we said that the first night it's the bread of emunah, second night it's the bread of healing. And we say that the bread of Amun is stronger because Nachatchila, you never get sick. The bread of healing is taka, it's moedic type of healing of Ani Hashem Reifecha, but still it's not as good as when it's starting with Amunah. So he said, if it's Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Rachel, which is a Merkava, then the matzah is Michla de Menusa. So then Nachatchila doesn't get sick. But if it's only Michla das Vasa, so then it's Ani Hashem Reifecha. And the Rebbe talks in Kabbalah that's a difference of Atik and Arich. Ani Hashem Reifecha is the union of Arich. And the Pnimius of Atik is the less smaller by Atika, is over there Lachatchila, is there's not Shaykh Refuah because there's no Shaykh Machla. There's not if it's not Shaykh Machla, what would you have a pharmacy for? Okay. So
in the Rabbi told Rabbi Zelickson when Mashiach will come, the doctor job would be tell everybody
it's preventive medicine. Okay. So this week is going to be Pesach Sheni, and there's a minhag Chabad to eat matzah on Pesach Sheni, and at the Fabrengen of Achron Shal Pesach, I mentioned from the Ma'aseh Rav, from the Vilna Gaon, he had a thought and never to eat matzah a whole year. As soon as it was Shkia Matzah Pesach, not to eat any matzah. I want to ask a favor for everyone, and please turn on your mute. So if he ate, he didn't want to eat matzah because he wanted to show that he's eating it only l'shem mitzvah. However, there is a minhag, and that people eat matzah as a refuah throughout the year. So I want to examine this concept. Good morning, Menachem. I want to examine this concept of eating matzah for refuah, and specifically this minhag that we eat matzah on Pesach Sheni, which is this week on Friday. There's a story that's brought in Oistesh about the Rebbe. Unbelievable story. The Rebbe went in Toshin to Zion to visit the camp Gan Yisrael. Tezvav Tammuz, 1956, the Rebbe drove up to Camp Gan Yisrael in the Catskills, and the Rebbe came to the camp, and he asked if there's a room if there's a place where he could do Natilas Yadayim. Inside of the dining room, they showed him a room. The Rebbe went in there, and he changed his kapota to a silk kapota, a Zayden kapota. He washed his hands, and he came into the dining room. The dining room was set up, and there were bread, and there was food on the table, but the Rebbe put his hand in his pocket, and the Rebbe pulled out a napkin, and from the napkin he pulled out matzah, and he made a moitzi on his own matzah. Then he told that everyone should go wash. It was even if there was one or two people that didn't wash, the Rebbe said davzach kein waschen. And the Rebbe then gave from his matzah, and the Rebbe said medaf net chappen sidof aralman. It was not a lot, but he saw that there were people taking bigger pieces. The Rebbe said the iker is yeder zalab nashtikla, the kamas danish nageya. It's not how big of a piece you have. The main is you have a piece. And there was one person that took a bigger piece, and the Rebbe noticed he put it in his pocket. So the Rebbe said, what are you doing? So he said it was from the Rebbe's afikoyman. The Rebbe said, it's not kein afikoyman sai visai. It's not from the afikoyman. But anyway, make sure that everyone should have. They noticed that the Rebbe all of a sudden took a napkin, and he cut a few pieces of matzah. He wrapped it up and he put it in his pocket. And then it continued. At some point, they got a telephone call at the Gan Yisrael that unfortunately there was a tragedy. There was from Anash that rented a car from Merkez. Actually, the car was rented by Merkez. And there was an accident, and the car turned over, flipped 3 times. So 13 people were in the car, and the menal of the camp out of Kahos Shichya Weiss went over to the Rebbe and told the Rebbe about it. And the Rebbe said, "Nu sevet alt sein in Ordnung. Everything will be fine. Don't worry." And the Rebbe put his hand in his pocket and gave the napkin where he had wrapped up those few pieces of matzah. They later figured out that when the Rebbe had put away those few pieces of matzah was bidiyuk, exactly the time when they had the accident. And the way the Rebbe said is exactly what happened. Everything was Baruch Hashem in Ordnung. Everyone came out to say the Gomer Baruch Hashem. So we see from this story and many other stories that the Rebbe used to use matzah as a thing for refuah, not only on Pesach but throughout the year. So look in your sheets that sent out, and if you don't have it printed out, you can look on your phone, open it up. Again, the Shkoyach to Rabbi for sending it out. So there is from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, really the Chok Yaakov brings it, and the Magen Avram brings it in Tafai and Zion, that the Alter Rebbe brings Hanoigim Linkoiv Chatichas Afikoyman. There was a minhag that they would take a piece of Afikoyman and make a little hole inside, put in a string, and they would hang it up on the wall, or they would hang it up like a charm on their neck. Ein bazeh isur mishum noikev b'yomtiv. There's no isur on Yomtiv because you're making a nekev. Lefish isur as is nekev afilu b'Shabbos ein shayich ba'ich l'elo ba'etzem v'avonim. Making a nekev is only isur if it was in a rock, if it was in a piece of wood, if it was a piece of metal. Matechas kayotzem mishar dvarim murim lasam kelim if it was roy to make kelim through it. Ayin simon shin yudalet. But over here in a matzah, it's not shayich that you're going to make a keli out of it. So you're not building a keli. So it's not a problem to make a little hole and hang it up on the wall and hang it up on your neck or on your daughter's neck as a charm. And we see that there was an old minhag to use the afikoyman as protection. What's the reason for this? So many Sfarim talk about this. There is from the Zohar. The Zohar says long arichas, but I'm quoting a few words. Kegavna the shadi the shadai the mezuzah, just like the shundal yud of the mezuzah. The mavriach l'shei the mazikim that chase away all the mazikim. If chas v'shom there's a hezek, there's a damage. Chas v'shom, there's a machla, there's a disease, there's a pandemic. So in order to get rid of these mazikim, a person protects himself through the shundal yud of the mezuzah. Which, by the way, is a reason why people should think about checking their tefillin mezuzahs now. So the Zohar says that the matzah is the same thing. It's ovid meriva. It fights against the detractors of the Eden. And that's why it says matzah, malosha matzah umeriva. That's the loshon of the Zohar. It's brought in Sefer Yosher for Rabbi Yoer Bakrach Chavas Yoer, the Mavriach Mazikin Kama Mezuzah. It's brought in Tur Barekes, the Reb Chaim Koim, the Talmud Reb Chaim Vital, which is a very important Kabbalah Sefer. That there's a skula lahamed ayam izap. If you're in a boat and there's a storm, you have obviously a Jew keeps a piece of matzah in his pocket. There was that old minhag that a person keeps in his pocket a piece of matzah, and you take a little of that matzah and you throw it into the ocean. And there's some things to say, and it's bodika menusa. He said we've tried it many times, and you'll be safe if you use the matzah. And Svarim that bring that's the Rosh Hashanah of matzah. Mikol tzara hitziloni. Mikol tzara hitziloni. So, and we know from several stories from the Rebbe that not only on Pesach, that the Rebbe would give matzah for refuah. So there is interesting in the Kitzur Shalom, in the Sefer Kitzur Shalom, he says that this aminig to use it as a charm or to hang it up, he thinks is wrong because it's bizu oichlam. Others say, what kind of bizu oichlam? You're not mezvaza oichlam because you're using it as a protection. But and then there's also another thing in the Rav Taichtal. Rav Taichtal was a Kodesh. He has his grandchildren, a lot of Lubavitch Chassidim, including cousins Taichtal. I have a good friend also, Rabbi Taichtal, Chief Shliach in Berlin. They have a Zayda that there was unbelievable Abrem fire. It was never the Nazis found him mamish a few days before liberation. They killed him, Rahman al-Islam. But he wrote he wrote a whole sefer which is about the desire for the Geula. He writes in his Sheilos Tshuva sefer Mishnah Socher that he says it doesn't make sense to use the afikoyman because afikoyman is like the Korban Pesach, and therefore what's left is like noiser. You should eat up your afikoyman. Use different matzah. So anyway, we see taka from the Rebbe that it was lav dafka afikoyman and lav dafka to hang up as a charm, but rather the other way that to eat the matzah and to ingest the matzah, and that had the koyach of michla the memnusa or michla dasvasa, two ways of healing. One is ear with two yuds. Chatchila doesn't get sick, the preventive medicine, like Shmulik said, and the other is if he was sick, but it's such a powerful healing that's as if he was never sick to begin with. Rashi says even if you did get sick, it's as if you're so healed, retroactively as if you were never sick. So the bottom line is that definitely if you have leftover matzah from Pesach, don't throw it out, keep it. Especially now that we're in the situation that we're standing in now, so keep that matzah and from time to time have a piece of that matzah, and definitely that this gives us extra koyach that this year we should be makbid on the minig and mefarsim the minig to make it public. This minig to eat matzo on Pesach Sheni, which this year is on Erev Shabbos Kodesh. So since we're talking about Pesach Sheni, the Pesach Sheni in the Chabad is clear what the idea of Pesach Sheni is brought in a Yom Yom. As a Kemal Shafal, it's never too late, even if Yibu was far, but and there was a Toma, spiritually was far, and he was spiritually defiled, but there's always a second chance. So just like it's Navodas Hashem, also into the Rabbanu Shalom, he didn't give us the Geula yet, but we can still make it up now, and Mashiach Tzidkenu will come. Maybe we'll still do the korban. We'll discuss. Mashiach will discuss with us, and maybe we'll still have a chance to do the korban Pesach and the Pesach Sheni this week. Second question. Someone asked me this week, and I want to say Mazel Tov because he read, "Hey, I had the baby." So Rabbi Yaakov Gerlitz and his wife, they had a baby boy, and the Mitzvah Wednesday be a bris. So the Mazel Tov. But someone asked that at what point does a wife become a Nida when you're going to the hospital to have a baby? At what point could you not hand something over to her, or all the harchokas? When does it kick in? When does a woman become Nida, and all the laws of Nida apply? At which point, when a woman is about to have a baby? Okay. So this is the second question we'll deal with. The third question we'll get to is about paying tuition and employer-employee issues in the wake of Corona. So this is Sheilos, second Sheilah here on the sheet. Look here, the Nachla Shiva writes like this. And Sheilah Tess, he's a Talmud of. He was a very important sefer. If you write any contract, anyone that writes ever status, everything goes back to the Nachla Shiva. Very important for anyone that writes ever a star, Ksuba, and so on. But in the end of the Nachla Shiva, he has a list of chuvas. And the Sheilah Tess, he writes like this. Nishalti, I had this question. She thought that was time to have a baby. Sorry for the typo, because I'm typing it out. I just like the poetry here. It didn't end up the Chevle Leida in a sweet way. She thought she's about to have the baby, but she's still walking with Kreisa Ben Shineo, that's the expression of Chazal, that her belly between her teeth. In other words, she's walking out with, she's still pregnant, fully pregnant, and still for another 4 weeks. The question is, what she do now? Is, on the one hand, they thought that she's about to have a baby, so she's already a Nida. On the other hand, she's back home for another month. She go to the mikveh. She not have to go to the mikveh. She had Nida. She not a Nida. What's going on? He says, the they say that if the doctor came and already started the process and then it stopped, it turned out to be false labor. So they say that she's already Tomei. And he says, even though he says here in Germany the women they say they don't know a minik, but in Poland they're big Yiddish Shemaim, and if they had, that's their minik, so we have to look into it. He says, I have a raya before from Gemara that's the din. What's his raya? Emor says in Shabbos, Amre Yehuda Mishmuel, Chaya calls man shakeve pasuach, machal lo it's a Shabbos. A woman that's about to have a baby, you're machal Shabbos. When do you start being machal Shabbos? As soon as the kever opens up, the uterus starts opening. From when does the uterus start opening? How do I know the uterus is starting to open? I'm not a doctor. My wife thinks she's in labor. So the shaila is, do I call a taxi? Or if I can't find a taxi, do I jump into the car, start driving her to the hospital? Alternatively, if it's a home birth, when do I get up on the phone, call the people that are coming to help out in the birth, so on and so forth. So when do I start being Mechal Shabbos? Psichas HaKeva. How do I know Psichas HaKeva? I don't know that the uterus is opening. When she sits down on the bed, that's it. She can't walk around anymore. Sometimes the beginning of labor and the dafka, it's kedai for a woman to walk. That helps the whole thing come along. But at some point she can't walk anymore. She has to sit. Even if she's walking, but she can hardly walk. So once she sits down, and you know, okay, that's it. Business. That means that the uterus is opening, and you can be machal Shabbos. From when the blood starts, when you see blood. Third opinion is she can't walk anymore. Her friends are helping her walk. So the Gemara says in Nida, there's a cardinal rule in it's a machlokas, but we paskin in some kuf peiches. There's no such thing as the uterus opening and the blood not coming out. This is a very important klal. Maybe next week or a week after we'll talk about this, how it's relevant for this rule, Lagabi regular checkups that a woman has at the doctor's office. But that's the psak. So if the uterus opens, there must have been blood came out. So it says in Simon Shin Lamed Shulchan Aruch we paskin that any one of the three is good enough. So if the woman is Yoshua Lamashba, she sits down, she's about to have the baby, that is good enough to start being Machal Shabbos. In other words, that's called Psichas HaKever, that the uterus is opening. And the Gemara says in Nida, so put two and two together. Gemara Shabbos says, L'gabi Shabbos, that you know that the uterus is opening when she sits down. And the Gemara says in Nida, when the uterus opens, blood surely came out. Even if you didn't see it, blood came out. Maybe it's a little drop, but you didn't see it. So therefore, from this moment that she sat down, is that she's a Nida, and therefore, now that it turns out there's false contractions, it doesn't matter. But the uterus opened up, therefore there must have been dam. She has to have sektaita and so on, and go shiva nekim and go to the mikvah. That's the shit of the Nachla Shiva. It's Brona Shulchan the Pesach Shuvah, it's a Menkuf Tzadik Dalet. The Kreisi places Siddur which are two very important poiskim. The Kreisi Plaisi is Rabbi Yochanan and Eifshitz, and the Siddur in is Rabbi Yochanan. He's probably the most prominent poisik in Hilchas Nida, the most important poisik. You don't see him in other places, but in Hilchas Nida he's the most important poisik, from the most important poiskim. They argue and they say, I don't know what you're talking about. L'gabi Shabbos, it's a suffix sakonas nefashos. You have to mechal Shabbos. So even though most Rishonim don't hold like Abaya, only the Ramban and all the other poskim hold that sitting on the mashber is not good enough. That has to be first the blood comes and then you sheves al mashber. That's the way most of the poskim paskin. So until you see blood, you don't know that there was psichas hakever. But lagabe l'machal Shabbos pikuach nefesh. Not only that, other poskim add to this more. Most women, once the labor starts, they're going to have a baby. False labor is an unusual thing. So you see, it's the telltale signs that it's happening. But if she went to the hospital or she sat down in her bed, the home birth, and then it turns out it was false labor and delivery for false labor. So it turns out it was false labor. So it retroactively, Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi, please put on the mute button. So it turns out that it was a false labor. So nothing opened up. Retroactively, nothing opened up. That's what they say. The Chavas Das and Nida also argue, but they bring up a different logic. They say that when the Gemara said the uterus will not open without blood coming out, it means if the Gemara was talking about if there was if she had a miscarriage. So we say it must have been that blood came out or something fell out. So if something comes out of the uterus, we say even if you didn't see any blood, there must have been blood. But Stamazeh, if the uterus opened, it doesn't mean that any blood came out. That's what they say. So l'choira, what's the nafkamina between? They're both arguing on the Nachla Shiva, and they're both saying if she stands up afterwards, she doesn't have to go to the mikvah and she's tahoira. But there's still a difference, it seems to me, between the crazy place to say the Tara and the logic of the Chavas Das and Nida Behuda. While the woman is sitting on the bed and she checks, she says, I don't see any blood. Are she a Nida at that point or not? The Siddur Tara Befeder says even if she's not sitting on the bed, but if she's already at the point really she should be sitting, right? You're going to the hospital with her. And she's moaning and groaning. She should be already in the bed. It's just that you ended up coming to the hospital a little late. So she's already in need at that point. The Siddur Tara says, if it turns out that it was false labor and she gets out of bed and goes home, so retroactively there was never psichas hakever. But according to Chavas Das and Nida Behuda, even if she's sitting now on the bed and she tells her husband, I'm checking, there's no blood yet. I see clearly there's no blood yet. So she's mutter even right now. It doesn't start until there's blood. Helft the Eibishter, I found the Igis Moshe mentions that he thinks that this is an afkamina between the Kreise Klesi and the Chavas Das Nida B'Yehuda, but he thinks l'chumra. But he says because the Chavas Das is a Das Yochanan. He never mentioned the Nida B'Yehuda. The reason why, because Nida B'Yehuda is not a tshuva that's in the regular. It's somewhere in the back in the Kuntasachin, and it's also brought. It's brought by his Talmud, the Tshuva Ma'av and Simon Kufta Zayin. His Talmud said that he paskin Lakula in his town. And it's geworden a Sturm in the ganze Stadt. The Rav said against the Nachla Shiva. So he says, who cares about what the Nachla Shiva? I paskin from the Gemara that Ashi the Toisvis. Well, I don't care what the Nachla Shiva said. So he wrote a letter to his Rebbe, the Nida B'Yehuda, and Nida B'Yehuda says, you're right. These people, he says, we paskin for the Gemara that Ashi the Toisvis. So the Nida B'Yehuda agreed with him. Cool. Anyway, Lamaisa, obviously, it's kedai to be machmer, that from when the woman starts serious contractions that are causing dilation, to consider it a nida. However, there is the Chavas Das, Nida B'Yehuda, a very strong poskim. It's not just the Chavas Das that's making. Nida B'Yehuda also is making. So if the woman needs help, then it's kedai to be makel. Befrat that it's in that situation it's sometimes close to pikuach nefesh. A woman needs the security that her husband is there to help her.
I hear you breathing.
And if she's not yet settled in bed in the hospital or at home,
I hear you
whatever position she is, what she wants to be in, if it's a bed, bathtub, whatever it is. She's not yet settled, and where she needs to be in order to have the baby. Obviously, she's quite anxious, and she needs the help.
Applicant.
So definitely, at that time,
I don't hear any
still be helping out. But once she's already settled to have the baby, wherever it is, in the hospital, the doctor is there, everything is settled. So then it's kedai to be machmer, that not to treat it as she's already a nida. Obviously, it turns out it's false labor, or even if they say, you know what, just go take a walk around the block. So then you can be makel and give her a hand and so on. So she's not a nida. Moving once she actually sees blood,
I hear like strange.
There's no question she's a nida. And the Rebbe brings from that the husband should not be in the room at the time of
doesn't sound like a voice, but
so the Ignis Moshe brings. He says Kapasha not son of a person. First of all, she's a nida. Once she's a nida, you're not allowed to look at the covered parts of her body. Any covered part of her body. A person should never look at that. So, when a woman's having a baby, you need all the schusim in the world. So why would you do at that time something which is also al-bidin? So therefore, the Moshe says, obviously, if the woman needs your help, the doctor didn't arrive yet, or whatever it is. Obviously, it's of course nefesh, you have to be there. But if the doctor's there, the nurse is there, they don't need you. They don't want you there. So then, kedai, you should walk out of the room, and if you want to be helpful for your wife, open up the hillim and zog up the hillim. That's going to help more than anything.
Okay, good.
This shaila as so. Anyway, bottom line is that it's kedai that from when she has contractions that are bringing dilation, strong contractions, to treat her as if she's a nida. If she needs help, then I would say you could be makel until she starts she starts seeing blood. The poskim today say if it just broke the water lav dafka that there is blood, although that's only a lav dafka. I mean, most women or a lot of women, when they break the water, they already see blood. That if she said, you can't assume that there is no blood unless you check, just to check. If she does taka no blood, so then there is a room to be makel. Also, there are women that already dilate, that they have this, they already dilated or halfway dilate, 3/4, they already dilate several centimeters before they start contract. That's nothing to do with psichas hakever. We're talking about strong contractions that are bringing the dilation. This is a special connection to where we're standing now, because there's the Chazal say that before the birth, that Mashiach's coming is like the being born, a baby being born. Before a baby is born, the Chazal say that the roish is bein habekaim. Basically, the stomach is functioning, the baby's eating, but what's not functioning? The head is not functioning. In the Yidden and Golus, we're functioning, but our heads are not functioning. We don't see a lakus, we don't hear a lakus. Our heads are not functioning. When Mashiach comes, it's like a baby being born. Right before a baby is born, there's unbelievable birthing pains. That's what Chazal call Chevle Mashiach. Alter Rebbe says Chevle Mashiach is Chevle Leida. It's birthing pains. Right before Mashiach comes, Klal Yisrael will experience unbelievable tremors and pain. And why does it have to be that way? Why does it have to be that way? There's an unbelievable word here in the Alter Rebbe. There's Maimorim Hanochas Haraf. So the Alter Rebbe says like this. The Alter Rebbe gives a mashal. He gives an unbelievable mashal. He has several mashalim, but there are two mashalim he gives. He says a person's building a house, right? He built it from scratch. He got the permits. He's working already 3 years. It's almost ready, and there's some delivery that has to come. Some piping has to come. The last few little things. To connect the boiler or something, and to connect the air conditioning, and it's not coming. It's just not coming. A problem with the shipping. It got lost. It's here. The guy he's plotzing. He's just plotzing. What are you plotzing? It'll take another week, another 2 weeks. Maybe it'll take another 2 months. You waited 3 years. Right when you started building, and you waited 3 months for the permits. You weren't plotzing. Like today, so big deal. You wait, the UPS will come, they'll bring the piece, they'll connect the Daganish. But it's already too much. You waited already 3 years. I put in so much koiches. I can't take it anymore. Another mishigas with the UPS, as if he lied. He said he rang the bell. He never even rang the bell. Gahak that shining pieces coming, ring around the roads. I want to move into the house already. The boy nishlamach kenshin is toisva. Ad Mosai. So in the Yidna 2,000 years in Golos, the first few years in Golos, they knew they're going to be in Golos for a while. There's a lot to do. But now that we know already kolo kitzim, that's done, the job is done. There's a few screws that need to be tightened. What are the screws? We don't know. Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach. We have to polish the buttons. The Rebbe says if you polish it too much, is also not good. So meplatz, ad mosai. Another fascinating raya that the Alter Rebbe brings is from the story of Shimshon, that it says that she tortured him, Delilah tortured him. So it says, she gave him pain as bad as death. What was the pain? So Chazal say that what was the pain? That at the end of being together, in other words, when he would start she was fine, but towards the end she would run away. Kilu, she would pull herself away and not let him finish, and that's the most painful thing for a man. Why? Because even if he has a chukka, okay, she says, I'm tired tonight. Okay, shine. It'll be tomorrow night. Shine. Tomorrow night. But Chas v'shalom, B'nai Yisrael don't do such things, but I'm just giving a mashal. But because Delilah was the Chnara B'nai Yisrael, so he can say such a thing. Yeah, had she said, oh, not tonight, I'm tired. Okay. So no nish gefährlich. And in the Bronx, I had a guy that said, "Oh, Rabbi, you know the joke about the Jewish women, why they like Chinese food? Because wonton the other way is spelled not now." Anyway, so she says not now. Okay, shine, not now. But his chuk is so big towards the Gemar. The chuk is unbelievable. Is unbelievable. It's from head to toe. And then she shemetas. The pain is like death. So when the Yidna, the chuk is after 2,000 years in Golos, the chuk is so moidedik. The Yidna and the Eibush is like husband and wife, and the chuk is so moide maramdik. And then there's a ikuv in the Geula, and there's a Rachmana litzlan, there's a Makeifa. The pain is unbearable. But the emes is that pain is part of the whole thing that allows that the birth should happen. This pain causes the contractions and the dilation, and that allows that there should be the final kanak for Bias Mashiach Tzedkenu. Now there is a deep beard in that Alter Rebbe why it needs to be the way Apich Chassidus, but maybe we'll leave it for tonight and for another time. The Eibush says al helfen that enough said, and the Yidden in this century suffered plenty in Chevlei Mashiach, and this should be the last tremor of and the last contraction that we should finally see the birth of Mashiach Tzidkenu and the Gula Mitzvah Shlema. Last question for today, the third question for today is people are asking about tuition. The kids were off school for a long time. Chayiv to pay tuition, not chayiv to pay tuition. Simple. So, in general, this question is not only about tuition. Every employer and employee. So, sort of the teachers are, in a way, your employee. It doesn't feel that way when you come to negotiate for tuition, but that's really sort of the arrangement. You're the employer of the malamdim and the malamdes. So the question is, what should be the arrangement now? Are you chayiv? Say till Pesach, there was nothing going on in the schools. Now that there is something, still we have the kids pre-1A. They learn for a half hour a day. The rest of the time they're here. If they're not here, they're here. They're not here, they're here. You know what I'm talking about if you have little kids. So I had a good babysitting service. We used to leave the house at 8 o'clock, drop them off at school, and we had a little time to breathe from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, at least from Monday till Thursday. So why should I pay tuition right now, says the parent. And the same thing with the employer and employee. What's the din? It's a very irrelevant question for right now. Turn to the next page here. Top paragraph. It says in the Gemara, Baba Metzia, a person that he takes the field from his friend. Either it's kablonas, the Gemara says, or chakirus. He rents the field. He's planning to use the field this year. If it's an apple tree, apple grove, fruit tree, or it's a beis hashlochen, where there's water that runs through it, and he's going to plant wheat. Yovesh Hamayin, now the beis hashlochen, the water brook that we're running through, which is a source of water, got dried up. The trees, there was some problem, and the trees died. He doesn't pay him a nickel less from the rent that was agreed in the beginning of the year. He said, Beis HaShluchim Zu, this Beis HaShluchim, this field, that Beis HaShluchim means a place where it has a source of water to feed the grain. So then, because he said, this field that has these trees, this field that has this brook. But now, this is not what I asked you. I've asked you for the field. I'm paying you $1,000 a year for the field with this brook, with this river, for the field with these 10 trees. The trees died. So therefore I don't have to pay. That's the mission. What are we talking about? That the whole valley, there was a big river, and from the river goes out small brooks to all the fields. The whole river got dried up. So why shouldn't he deduct? Name alay makas Medina. Should say it's Makkah Medina. And we have the Gemara says, the Mishnah says later in Daf Kuf Hey, the Mishnah says that if there is if the locust came to my field and ate up the fruit, I take the loss. If I took from you a field $1,000 a year, the locust came, ate up my fruit. So you say it's your bad luck. I don't know. The locust came to your field, ate up your fruit. You still have to pay the $1,000 a year. The Mishnah if it's a Makkah Medina, and the entire valley, the entire place. The locust came, ate up everyone's fruit. You can't. It's Makkah Medina. Then Menakaloy, there has to be a nikui. We have to take the loss 50-50. So why over here don't we split the loss? The Yovish not a zute that it's talking about over here. It wasn't a Makkah Medina. There was the little brook is dried up, but the guy can still go to the main river and get water. Obviously, that's a crazy job. He's gonna have to go bucket by bucket, wagon by wagon. But still, that's not Makkah. Only by Makkah Medina they would have to deduct, and they would have to split the loss 50-50. But otherwise, I told you I'm going to pay you for this year $1,000 for the field. I got to pay you $1,000 for the field. Doesn't matter what happens, unless it's Makkah Medina. If it's Makkah Medina, we split the loss. So the Shochnarach Shemish Paskins, Achoyker Makabel Sadam Chaveda, Bu Beis HaShlochim, Oy Beis Eilan. I rented from you a field, either in a way, I'm paying you $1,000 a year, or Kabbalon, a Makabal, which is we're going to split the produce, say 50-50 or 3/4 a quarter. And the river got dried up. But the big river, the little brook, got dried up, but the big river that goes through the entire valley, that didn't dry up. And you could still go there with buckets and bring water, even though it's tedious. Or the trees died. But if it was a Makas Medina, the whole river got dried up, and he does deduct. You have to split the loss 50-50. Any case that there is an issue in the land, we split the whole thing was ruined. Have a Makas Medina that it's a Makas Medina. And we split the loss. Then we can't make a difference what happened yesterday or what's going to happen. When we realize that that's it, there is a loss. For a few months, we think maybe things are going to change. But once we realize the loss is a loss, so maybe one side wants to renege on the deal. You can't renege when it's a Makas Medina, so-called Makas Medina. You can't renege on the deal. We just have to split the loss 50-50. 50-50, like they say. 50-50. So you have to split the loss. That the Maram brought in the Mordechai said, there was a Malamed. The governor said, you're not allowed to teach Torah in this region. Couldn't. You can't. The Rabbi used to say, Mercedes Neves, you could jump off the roof. You can't jump onto the roof. He can't run a cheder if there's cops, if there's with guns, with swords at the door. Maybe you could go with 1 or 2 kids, go into the basement, learn a little bit of Torah, but you can't. It's not, business is not running as usual. So have a Makas Medina, the Balabais is to pay the full tuition. So we see that you can't say, okay, listen, now there's a Makas Medina, let's cancel the deal. You can't cancel the deal. They made up to hire the teacher for the year. You can't cancel it in the middle. Same thing here. You made up to pay for the field for a year. I told you I'm going to pay $1,000 for the field a year. I have to pay you. Oh, the Makas Medina, we split the loss, but I can't cancel the middle. That those that disagree. No, we could cancel the deal. As we said before, if I hired from you a chamor for a month, and after 2 weeks it dies, so I could say forget it. Okay, and the carcass says worthless. So I said that's it. For the first 2 weeks I pay you because I had a car for 2 weeks, and the car died and it's worthless. I can't do anything. So again, call AAA to tow it back to your station again. Then for another 2 weeks, it's over. So each side could be choser, but if he was not choser, that means he was moichel. So then he has to pay the full amount. That's the shit of the Maram Padva. And the Ramos says, I like the first opinion. I want to explain the story that led up to this Maram Padva. The Maram Padva was from the Chosheve Poiskim. He lived in Padua in Italy. So there were Jews that had banks. You can't just say today, you can't go on Avenue J and open up a bank. You have to have licenses. It's not like if you want to open up a corner bodega, when you open up a bank. Maybe opening a bodega is also not so posh here in New York, but definitely you need certain licenses and insurances in order to open a bank. Okay, so there was a Yid in Padua that had a license to run a bank, and he had a bank on the main main street in Padua 600 years ago. So this was Reuven. Shimon made a deal with Reuven. He'll pay him, let's say, $1,000 a year for 10 years. He has the bank. Year 1, 2 was great. Year 3, the ruler of Padua came out with a new law. The courts will only enforce loans that have a collateral that is land collateral. That if there's collateral behind the loan, that means that the person put up his house or his apartment building or his field or his business as a collateral against the loan, the courts will enforce that loan. But if it's what's called a hot loan, it's not backed with a mashkanta, they're not going to enforce it. Obviously, that's terrible for the banks. This is today, this is where every guy and his brother-in-law is making money that way. You find some guy that needs a loan, and he's paying 300% interest per month, and that's where the parnos is. Not when you give a loan for 4.25% per mashkanta on a house. When that's not where the money is. So now Shimon was stuck. The money in the bank was not on these loans on the houses, not the mortgage. The mortgages that the banks were giving out were not the main money maker. The credit card is where you make money. Credit card is where the person's paying on the best credit card. You're paying 30% interest a year, right? And the house loan today, it's running somewhere between 4 and 5%. That's the profit the bank is making on your loan on the house. On your credit card, the bank is making at least 30% a year, and there's like fees here, a fees here, they cap you a fee here. Well, they're making 40% interest a year. So could you imagine that all of a sudden you can only give mortgages? You can't give out any other loans, no credit cards, nothing. Shimon said, "What should we do?" Maram Padva said, if you, as soon as you realize that there's nothing to do, they tried to change the rules that they can't do it, he could say, I don't want the deal anymore. But if they realized they can't do anything, and he kept on paying rent, there's that ayah, there was Moichel, and he has to stick with the bank. Other places can say, I don't understand. This is a Makas Medina, so, and you can't renege on the deal. You can't renege on the deal. So the Ramah passing is like the first shita. You can't renege on the deal, but you have to split the loss. There's a big question that all the Noise Kele Shulchan Aruch asked. What's that ayah that you bring from a Malamed? That you're telling me that it's a Makas Medina and they have to split the loss 50-50. But the Maram says, name the Mordechai, that you have to pay if there was a Makas Medina. And the ruler said that you're not allowed to teach Torah. And he agreed to pay $1,000 a teacher for the year. That he has to pay him the entire $1,000. That's what it says. So what's the raya? It's a raya that you can't be choizer, that you can't renege on the deal. Either side can't renege on the deal. But you're telling me when there's a Makas Medina, you have to split the loss. But why Malamed, you have to pay the whole thing? So there's a few shittas how to answer this question. The Gros says that it's choylek on the Shulchan Aruch. He says, "Taka, you don't have to pay a nickel or a dime to the Malamed." The Smeh says, "No. But Malamed, it means 50-50. That you pay the Malamed only 50%, just like in the bank, and every loss that there is in the here that the river dried up. That the Makas Medina, you split the loss 50%, 50-50, and there is a shita no that the Malamed you have to pay him the full amount, and within that there's Nacharoinim. There's three shittas for the reason. There's a shach, there's an asivas, and there's a tzamach tzedek. But before we go on, look at the next paragraph. I just want to show you why the Gro is so troubled with this din of the Ramah, and argues against the Maram and the Mordechai and against the Shulchan Aruch, against the Ramah and Shulchan Aruch. Because there is a later Mishnah. There's a earlier. I mean, what the Halacha we just learned is from Perek 9 in Baba Metzia, but this is going back to Perek 6 in Baba Metzia. The Shulchan Aruch says, I hired a worker to. I pay you $1,000 this year. You're gonna water my fields. The poil loses. He doesn't give him a nickel or a dime. If he tricked him, he knows the worker doesn't know that in this town, sometimes all of a sudden there's unbelievable torrential rain. He's a guy who comes from a different city. The balabas knows and the worker doesn't know. He should have told him about it. So then he has to pay him. But since he didn't work, so he's not mamish working, so it's not so hard. So he pays him like a poil bottle, a discounted rate. He pays him a discounted rate. And later Shulchan Aruch says the same thing by Malamed. The same thing of Malamed. If to say the Talmud got sick, and the Talmud can't come learn, you have a private tutor for your son. The kid got sick, Nebuchadnezzar kid passed away, and there was a deal for a year. So So if the father knew that the kid is prone to get sick and he didn't tell the teacher, so then he has to pay. Then he has to pay. Otherwise, he doesn't have to pay. There's an important nakuda that I'll get back to this thing about the teacher and the student, that the student got sick or passed away. We'll get to that later. The poil always takes the loss. So the girl says, I don't understand how these two dinim compute. You're telling me that if I told you I'm going to hire your field for $1,000 a year, and now there is a problem in the field, I have to pay every nickel and dime. If it's a makas medina, we'll split the loss. Now I told you I'll pay. You're going to work for me this year. I'll pay you $1,000, and now it turns out that there's no job to water my fields. But all of a sudden there's torrential rains, or all of a sudden the opposite. There's no water in the entire country. There's no water to get. So the whole deal is off. I don't have to pay a nickel or a dime. Don't you see the differences, the Gra? Here with the field, I still have to pay you the full amount. Makas Medina makes it a discount. Here by the worker, I made up. I'll pay you $1,000 a year. There's no work. I pay you not a nickel, not a dime. Now there's a Makas Medina. I should pay you less than not a nickel. Well, you can't pay less than not a nickel. But why should you all of a sudden pay more? Therefore, the Gra argues with this din. He says there's no such thing as Makas Medina over here. With if I hire a worker and all of a sudden there's a Makas Medina, the governor of New York said that the workers can't come into the office, and it's not a type of job that the worker could do on the phone. The Gra says you don't have to pay a nickel or a dime. If it's land, I say to my landlord, I have a guitar store, but the governor said I can't. I still have to pay my rent. The rent I still have to pay, but the workers I don't have to pay the workers. That's the Gra's shita. And the same thing with the Malamed, you don't have to pay him anything. The Smeh says no, it's 50-50, and there are those that say that you pay the whole amount. Now, in those that say they pay the whole amount. So there's several understandings how and why, but I want to say a very simple thing that seems to me very simple. If I tell a worker to work for me, and I didn't trick him, we both don't know the circumstances, or we both do know the circumstances. So it's as if we made up l'chatchila. I'm only hiring you if there's work to do. If there's no work to do, I'm not hiring you. So therefore, it turns out it rained. There's no work to do. So that's as if that's the agreement to begin with. So therefore, I don't pay you a nickel or a dime. But if it's a Makas Medina, that's not what we had in mind. We didn't know that all of a sudden there's going to be a corona, the governor was going to make a law that you can't, no essential workers can work. So I have to pay you. And therefore, it would stand to reason why over here you have to pay the full amount. Dafka, not even Makas Medina, you have to pay the full amount. So the bottom line is, how much you pay the teacher? The Shach says the whole full amount, and I don't want to go into the reason. The Nesiva says, svara, why you have to pay the teacher the full amount. The Nesiva says, the reason you have to pay the teacher the full amount, just brilliant. He said the Gemara in the Dinim says you're not allowed to pay a teacher for teaching Torah to your son. Moshe Rabbeinu says that I teach you, you should teach just like I was teaching, just like the Rebbeinu Shalom taught me Torah and I didn't pay tuition. The same thing when you teach Torah, you shouldn't charge tuition. The Gemara, how could you pay tuition? The Gemara says you're not paying for the Malamed to teach Torah to your son. You're paying for babysitting service. Schar Shimur. Paying for the babysitting service. So, but the Vaila, what is the Malamed doing with the son? He's not playing Uno or backgammon. He's learning with him Chumash and Rashi and Mishnah and the Bartanura. But you're paying him for the Schar Shimur. So says the Nesivas that when you have a worker and it rains, so Taka, you don't have to pay him a nickel or dime. But a teacher, you hired him for the year to teach your son, but you can't pay him for teaching. You're hiring him to guard your son, for babysitting service. He's still willing to do it. There's no law against doing babysitting service. Bring him to the Malamed's house or let the Malamed go back to school. And all they should do, they should play Uno and backgammon. They should play basketball and football. They should play hockey. The Malamdim are willing to do the job, and the kids are willing to have fun. And that's what the deal was. You're not allowed to pay for Limud Torah. You have to pay for Schar Shimur. So therefore, you have to pay the full amount. That's why he says, by a regular worker, you don't pay. But, or whatever it goes with a regular worker. But Malamed, you have to pay full amount. That's the brilliant of the Nesivus of Svara. If that was true, the Nesivus, according to the Nesivus, not if that was true, according to the Nesivus, so today's situation is just the opposite. What's today's situation? The governor never said that it's also to teach Torah. No. Not the governor, not the mayor of New York City said it's also to teach Torah. Then no problem. Corona is not a problem with learning Torah. It's just that you can't have children coming together in a building, social distancing. So the Gzeida, the Makas Medina, is against the Shimur. If you want to learn Torah, you can go online, you could Zoom, you could Jitsi, you could on the phone, you can teach as much Torah as you want. But you can't play basketball, football, and backgammon with the kids. So Gzeida is against the Shimur. So according to the Nesivus, you shouldn't have to pay the Malamed now.
Is anyone there?
To pay the Schar Limud. So according to the Gra, definitely you don't pay. According to the Smeh, all workers, it's 50-50. But according to the Shittas that a teacher gets full pay, according to Nesivus, that's only if he could still do the babysitting service. If he can't do the babysitting service, then you don't pay, or maybe just pay 50-50. Tzemach Tzedek says a different svara. Tzemach Tzedek says that the thing with the Rebbe and the student is that the Rebbe wants to teach and the student wants to learn. It's just like a lion is standing in front of the student and doesn't allow the Rebbe to walk over to the student and start teaching him. The Rebbe is willing to, it's not like that the student became sick and you can't teach him, or the Chatzstrom, the student passed away and you can't teach him. No, then circumstances change. Nothing changed. I hired the Malamed, $1,000 a year, you're going to teach the children. Malamed is willing and able to teach. He's not sick, Baruch Hashem, he's willing to teach. Kid is willing to learn. Elamai, there's police that are in the street, the social distance, they're going to give you a ticket, they'll take you to jail. Sounds from the Tzemach Tzedek that maybe every worker he would say the same thing. That by Makas Medina that you have to pay at maybe full even. But the Tzemach Tzedek doesn't go into it. He's just saying by the Malamed. So you could say, so according to Tzemach Tzedek l'choira, you say you have to pay full. But you could argue and could say that the Tzemach Tzedek was only talking about when the lion is in front of the Talmud, and the Rav really, but here the lion is on the Rav and on the Talmud, and I think it's a shvach argument. I think according to Tzemach Tzedek, you have to pay full tuition. So to summarize, when you took a piece of land from someone and you got to pay him, you got to pay him. Doesn't matter what happens. If it's a Makas Medina, then we split the loss. If it's a Makas Medina, we split the loss. So if you have a piece of property and that person has a store, for example, and it's non-essential business, so he can't run his business, but you still have to split the loss. It's nikwi. So worker, and now the worker can't go in. The Sheilos, the employer still has to pay him. So if it's not Makas Medina and the circumstances changed and the whole job evaporated, so you don't have to pay a nickel dime. If it is Makas Medina like today, it's a question, and there's many opinions here, and specifically by a Malamed tuition, there is several shittas here. Lamaisa, there is a golden rule in the Chosh Mishpat called Kimli. If the money, if the money's in my pocket, I'd say I want to go with the shach. Tomorrow I have the money in my pocket, and the other opinion. So I go to Bez and I say, no, today I decided I'd like to go like the Smeh. Next day, I have another Din Torah, and then this time the Nesiv is on my side. So I say to the Bez, true, Sunday I paskin like the shach. Monday I paskin like the Smeh, but Tuesday I decided today I'm paskin like the Nesivas. But Kimli, B'muchzik, I could say if the money's in my pocket, that's how I want the din to go. But it's not the Wild West. It says that Rabbi Yochanan Eifsher says in the Tumim that if every halacha has a machloikis, there'd be no point for the shachol chosh mishpat. If you say by mominus, you could say Kimli. Why did the Shulchan Aruch bother to make a Shulchan Aruch? Do you know one halacha that there's no machlokes about? Every person that has the money in his pocket is going to say Kimli. I found another shitta. It's another shitta. It's a favor from the Rishon. It's in the Ksav Yad. It's in Oxford. What's it called? In the Oxford Library. But the Feidish at Ivid. He says a story that his father-in-law, the Rebbe's Nafshin, his father-in-law passed away, and then there were fictitious shtoris loans, kilu, to take for away money from his children, and they had a taina Kimli like that Ivid. And they asked him to go to Bezin, and he went to Bezin, but they agreed that that's not a taina because that's whatever we pass with Shulchan Aruch. We can't, if it's ongenum and a din in Shulchan Aruch, you can't go against it and say Kimli against the Shulchan Aruch and all the ongenum and a poiskim in Shulchan Aruch. Another thing that you can't say Kimli is, for example, Sfardim. Most of the Sfardim poiskim hold that you can't say Kimli against the Beis Yosef. For example, to get Parsha, Maram Chabiv says, "Mineged Yisrael Mitzrayim shelo yuchalem Kimli neged the Beis Yosef." You can't say Kimli against the Beis Yosef. Yosef says something. He's the Morad Asra here in Eretz Yisrael. The Sfardim, you can't say Kimli against the Beis Yosef. He said, "Bekushtu Saloniki in Istanbul and Saloniki they do," but he says here not. So here there is a. I saw in one of these publications. Where is it? I don't know. That from Rabbi Raskin of Petach Tikva, Lubavitcher of Petach Tikva, he says, I don't know if a Lubavitcher Chosid could say Kimli against the Tzemach Tzedek. If the Tzemach Tzedek says that you still have to pay full tuition, how's that? It's Asra de Rav, a Lubavitcher Chosid. How could you say Kimli against the Tzemach Tzedek? So anyway, but otherwise, even if you're Lubavitcher Chosid, maybe you can argue what the Pshat in the Tzemach Tzedek is, but if you're not Lubavitcher Chosid, for sure, you could argue about today to say that you don't have to pay, you're paying for babysitting service. I'm not getting the babysitting service. Now, some teachers are going to argue back and say, what do you mean? We're working double as hard now. And for some teachers, it's true. Another taina that teachers could have, or schools could have, is, they were after Pesach, they worked really hard, many schools, to set up a new system. So if you had a problem with this and you don't want to pay tuition, you should have given us a call. And okay, well, we would. But if you kept quiet, you're Michael, like the story that Am Padve said with the bank. If you start screaming and you say you don't want to pay, Am Padve says, okay, so bottle a deal. But otherwise, you kept quiet. So you didn't call us and say anything about this. So anyway, Lamaisa. To summarize, if it was a deal between you and someone else, the two Jews, and it's land and it's Makas Medina, they split the loss. If it's a worker, so it's not clear, and Bepashtus, whoever has the money in his pocket says Kimli. If the worker already has the money in his pocket, he says Kimli. You already paid him, he says Kimli. If you have the money in your pocket, you say Kimli. So whoever has the money in his pocket wins. With a Malamed, it's a little more complicated, especially if you're Lubavitcher Chosid, and especially if you kept on letting your kids go online, so and you never made a macho and called the school. So what's your taina now? There might still be a little bit of a taina to school. Listen, they're not paying the same. They're not using the same amount of electricity, air conditioning. They should give a little discount for that. And befrat, they definitely, there's a taina for a couple of weeks that say till after Pesach, when the schools didn't organize themselves, and some schools had nothing, or some schools had some generic thing that they, so definitely the parents might have a little bit of a taina over there with the school. Okay, so again, we should summarize it one more time. If it's a land dispute, it's Makas Medina today with the corona, you split the loss. If it's a employer-employee, so whoever has the money in his pocket will probably say Kimli. And if it's tuition, probably our conversation is a mute conversation, because you want your child, if you want your child to go into that school next year and you're not going to pay tuition, so they won't take your child back in for the next year. So the conversation is only a conversation if it's you have no other children in that school and it's the 12th grade, or you're planning to change schools for next year. So most of us are not in that gedder. So we have other children still waiting, in line. And so, and as I said, there's a question, could you say Kimli against Tzemach Tzedek? And anyway, if you allow the kid to use the service of the school, and the school could say, what do you mean? I put in a lot of work, and you agreed to continue with us. So what do you want to get? The discount for the electricity? How much you want to get? Okay, $5.99. You want to argue about $5.99. So it's not a big deal. Well, one more little nakuda we already spoke about a malamed. If you get a teacher or a tutor for your son, and you knew that your son Nebuch gets very sick sometimes, and you didn't tell the teacher, so that's an exception. Just like if you knew a worker came from a different city, and you know that it starts to rain, and then there's no work, and you didn't tell the worker, you have to pay. But you only have to pay the worker kapoil bottle, because the poil is not working. He's sitting in the beach and he's sipping martini. So you pay him a discounted rate. If a person works and he gets paid $100 a day, so you know what? You don't have to work. You go to the beach. He would get $50 a day. Machaik is sitting on the beach. They have to pay him a kapoil bottle. Zok the Gemara. Zok the Shulchan Aruch. But if you hired a teacher, it's the same thing. The kid gets sick, you don't have to pay him. Like every worker, if it rains, there's no work. The work evaporated. You don't have to pay the worker. There's no chiyuv. Employer-employee laws, but there's not New York State laws. So, but what happens if the father knew that the kid is sick, or knew the kid Nebuch might pass away this year, and he didn't tell the malamed, he didn't tell the tutor? He has to pay, but not kapoil bottle. He has to pay him the full price. Why? There's a chiddush in the Gemara. The Gemara says that when do you pay a kapoil bottle? Only regular workers. But there was these husky guys in Mechuzah that if you tricked them, you knew that there might not be work, and then there was no work, and you didn't tell them, you don't pay them a discounted rate. Why? The Eloi Avdi Chalshi. These guys, they love to work. If they're not going to work for a day, they're going to get weak. It's their exercise. They hate it not working a day. Don't tell me to go to the beach and drink a martini. No. I don't want to drink a martini, and I don't want to be in the beach, and I don't want to not work, because I'm going to lose all my muscles. Don't tell me to go. No. You have to pay me every penny and more. I can't charge you more because that's not the. I can't not work for a day. That's the din that Rabbi says in Asoicher. Yeah, Ein Zayin, and that's the din. So Zok the Shulchan Aruch, the same thing. A malamed loim de Torah. It's a more than a thing. That Zok the Shulchan Aruch Chasim Shin Lamed Daled. The kol loim de Torah yoiser noyach lem lilmed melelech bottle. For loim de Torah, you can't say, you know what, nish gefeirlach. I'll give you. I tricked you. I didn't tell you my son might get sick. So fine, you don't have to tutor him now. But to go to the beach and drink a martini, and I'll pay you a kapoil bottle. No kapoil bottle, because the law avdi chalshi. If the loim de Torah, if they stop learning for a day, they get weak. Their brain gets weak. They start forgetting. They start getting rusty. A malamed wants to always teach. Loim de Torah have to always go again and again. That's what the Rabbi Musa said. You stop learning for one day, it's like stopping to learn 2 days. Why? So the Rabbi Musa said it's a mashal. Two people are standing next to each other, and then they said goodbye to each other. One walked 10 miles this way, and one walked 10 miles this way. How much apart are they? 20 miles. When a Yid walks away from Torah, the Torah walks away from him. See, Mazavani Yoim, you're walking one day this direction. Yoimayim Azveka. There's 2 days between us. There's not 24 hours between us, 48 hours between us. A Yid could never stop learning Torah. Kihem Chayenu. Learning Torah is our oxygen. Eloi Avdi Chalshi. When we stop learning Torah, we get weak. Beruchnius and then begashmius. So if we want to be strong, if you want to stay strong, begashmius, beruchnius, madaf learning the Torah. And Baruch Hashem, that's really what's happening. I must say, I feel mamish this way. That even though I when I had the virus, and even after I tested positive for the virus, I poshet lulit teroscha shashuya ozavadati ba'onye. Mamish, like we say in Tehillim. I think mamish nevach. What do goyim do when they're sick? What does a goy do? I don't know what a goy does. A goy is sick. He's sick. When I eat sick, and you could push and learn weiter, and you learn another Geschmack Asicha, and you learn another Klekute de Burim from the Friedeke Rebbe. It's Machayin Nefoshes. And then I kept my Sdorim. I tried very hard to keep the Sdorim. Mamish, you feel that it gives you chayes. It gives you chayes. You're alive. So that, and we feel it, Baruch Hashem and Beis Menachem Mendel, that the shiurim bekamus of eichus. Today the shiur was longer than the average shiur, and I see the oilam is still here. The oilam is still here. We went about already a quarter of an hour over, and Bechlal, the shiurim was starting earlier and finishing later, and double the oilam that we had before. So there's definitely that this chus, that if we don't learn, we get weak. But Bechlal lev at the shemein, Bechlal shalhein at the shemei alav. So because we're Beis Menachem Mendel and Klal Yisrael, Mamish, all over the world, there's unbelievably Soidus now in Limud HaTorah. So Bechlal hein, that because when he doesn't learn, he wird schwach. When a lead learns Torah, wird stark. So the Eibush shall help from the schus of this Limud HaTorah that we're doing today, and we're learning that all Klal Yisrael should be stark, all of us should be stark, and Peretz Tzvi should be stark and gesund, and have a refuah shleima, and the taka that by the coming this week, at the end of the week, that we should already sham noichel min azvachim abapsachim gula mitzvah shleima, that the end of the Chevlei Levi, the last few tremors, and we should be zoichet to have the gula mitzvah shleima.
Amen. Anybody want hayom yom?
You're on.
All right. Today is Tes ER. Our master, the Baal Shem Tov, taught.
Can I stop for a second? David, could you stop 1 second?
Yeah.
Sure. Does anyone have a shayla on what we did before we go into that Yom? Any shaylas on what we just had? Okay, yeah, David, you're on.
Rabbi, I have a shayla.
Yeah.
I gave checks for my grandson's tuition. Am I mechuyev to honor all those checks?
It's not called muchzik. If you could stop the check before they put it in, that's not called muchzik. They're not muchzik. You can stop the check. So I would suggest you talk to your son before you... Huh?
I should make a
just cancel the checks, and then they'll call you and you'll talk. Although, like I said, that for the Lubavitch, a little bit of a problem with the Kimli. I mean, I would suggest you talk to your son before you cancel these checks, because it might not be a sichsuch your son wants to have with the school.
I understand.
Okay. Hatzlocha. Okay, David, you're on.
Okay. All right. So our master Baal Shem Tov taught, whatever a person sees or hears is a directive for a service of Hashem. This is what divine service consists of. Avodah, understanding and deducing a way to serve Hashem from everything one sees or hears. In the letter from which the above teaching is taken, the Rebbe Rayatz relates that once when he was strolling with his father, the Rebbe Rashab, he asked him the meaning of the Baal Shem Tov's teaching that I just mentioned. The Rebbe Rashab answered, to be able to learn how to serve Hashem from everything one sees or hears is the Aleph Beis, the very basis of our divine service. It is not an easy Aleph Beis. It may even be quite a difficult Aleph Beis. The Rebbe Rashab continued walking for a while, wrapped in thought. The Rebbe Rayatz accompanied him in silence, reluctant to disturb his father's reflections. After a short while, the Rebbe Rashab stopped and said, the Baal Shem Tov taught that everything a person sees or hears is a lesson in serving Hashem. So that is a fact. They walked home, and the next time they strolled together, the Rebbe Rashab explained how one arrives at such an understanding. When a person feels that this principle is important, is vitally important, it is possible to learn this Aleph Beis. If a person focuses his attention on matters of divine service and desires it deeply, this enables him to set his sights on the emes, on the truth, and to attain it. So the principle is not only an inspirational message, the Baal Shem Tov's principle, but a logical deduction from a fundamental tenet of our faith. Speaking of the purpose of man's creation, the Chazal state, everything was created to serve me, and I was created to serve my Creator. Since this service is the raison d'etre, the purpose, the reason of our creation, it follows that it must encompass every aspect of our lives. And since everything that occurs to a person is directed by hashgacha pratis, divine providence, down to the minutest detail, it follows that everything that we see, hear, or encounter contributes to our ultimate purpose of serving the Creator. So the notes refer the reader to Chof Tes Sivan. According to the teachings of Hasidus, divine service entails training oneself to perceive Hashem's hashgacha pratis, how in his goodness he continually renews the world and all its created beings with his particular providence, and how this alone constitutes the continued life and existence of all created beings. So one of the most far-reaching innovations of Hasidus is its understanding of hashgacha pratis, how Hashem supervises and directs every detail of creation. The Baal Shem Tov taught that even the twists and turns of a leaf falling from a tree reflects a particular divine will and desire. This was a departure from the approach of some Torah luminaries of earlier generations who did not accept this conception or even rejected it outright. In their opinion, Hashem controlled the world with a general providence, whereas only the Jewish people, and all the more so the righteous among them, were subject to a specific hashgacha, care and attention. When we heighten our awareness of Hashem's ever-present guiding hand, we can see how every moment of our lives becomes an opportunity to communicate with Hashem. In this spirit, the Rebbe Rayatz once recalled a thought that his father, the Rebbe Rashab, had shared with him many years earlier when he was only 15 or 16 years of age. In everything, even in the minutest circumstance which we created beings reckon as nothing and do not take it all into account, there's a divine intention, a divine will and divine providence arranges the circumstances that will enable this intention to be realized in a certain way. It's almost finished. One day in the summer of 1896, I was strolling with my father in a field in the country resort of Bolivka, near Lubavitch, which is near where my family comes from. The crops were almost ripe, and the grain and the grass were nodding in a gentle breeze. Behold, godliness, Getlachite, said my father. Each movement of every single ear of grain and blade of grass was included in the thought that Hashem's thought, who watches and gazes until the end of all the generations. And the hashgacha pratis brings this thought to realization for the sake of a certain divine intention. As we walked on, we found ourselves in a forest, deep in contemplation of what I had now been told about hashgacha pratis, and overwhelmed by the gentleness and the earnestness of my father's explanation. I plucked a leaf from a tree that I passed by, that we were passing, and held it for a while in my hand, as people often do. And without taking particular notice, I tore off little pieces from the leaf every so often as I walked on, thinking about, whatever, and tossed them to the ground. My Tati, my father, then said, after explaining a teaching of the Arizal on the function of every created being, just now we discussed the subject of hashgacha pratis, and quite without thinking, you plucked a leaf, held it in your hand, played with it, turned it around, squashed it, tore it up in little pieces, and scattered it in various places. How can a person be so light-minded in relation to something created by Hashem? All right, there you go. A double header. Okay, something to think about today.
Yeah, Shekoyach, Hatzlacha. Have a great day.
Amen. The same to you, and thank you for the beautiful cheer.
Sure. Shekoyach, everyone, for joining at Mitzvah tonight, 8:30.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Hatzlacha.